Guys, today we have a very interesting topic and conversational point that we're going to be going over, and that is something called NFTs, or non-fungible tokens. And this is a Bitcoin, Dogecoin, Ethereum, you name it, all this blockchain conversation that people are having right now. Well, what does that mean? Yeah, people are playing on Robinhood and all these other sites to make money with all this movement of one way or another, what Elon's saying, what all these other people in the public are saying. But what does that actually mean when it comes to real estate? Well, that's the conversation that I want to have today, is what does it actually relate to when we go down to the details of how it relates to real estate? Because here's the conversation that's being had a lot lately, is what will be the equation of blockchain and all these other details to build out in the conversation about transference of tangible property. Because right now it's all in a digital method, right? So we have digital currency that is currently going out there. Well, now it comes down to, okay, we have digital currency. Now, how do we put that into a tangible asset, such as a piece of real estate? So we're going to go over a few of those details. And NFTs are unique, like an autographed baseball card, a piece of merchandise from a celeb that cannot be reproduced. Bitcoins are fungible. Okay, so let's put that into category of what actually happens. So what is an NFT? A digital contract. That's really what it comes down to. It's a transference of property based on the digital basis, a digital contract in detail. It transfers ownership, but it does this by taking in some of the basics of that particular piece of property, okay? So we're going to talk about this in the art world in a second, but basically it's taking the ownership right of that property. Think of a title policy, and it allows that title policy, or whatever it considers, that NFT, to be transferred from party to party. And what happens when that transference happens is that people now have the ownership transferred to them. Now, a lot of this is done with blockchain. A lot of it is done through the digital world. But at the end of the day, what it allows for is the ability to actually connect this new and fun and interesting and profitable avenue into the real estate or tangible method. So it has unique details that are a form of decentralized certification. So rather than filing all your documents at the county, this is now filing all those documents into a digital hard drive, a digital file that now can be transferred. But it has to be verified through blockchain. Now, we'll get into the ramifications of what that verification means in a minute, but it operates on places like blockchain, like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Dogecoin. NFTs are really centralized around Ethereum right now. So what does that exactly mean? Well, a non-fungible token, all right, is data added to a file that creates a unique signature, and it can be an image file, a song, a tweet, a text, posted on a website, a physical item. Now, that has not been really explored yet, but it can be a physical item, and then other various digital concepts. So the founder of Twitter just recently sold off his first tweet in a NFT. And I'll get over some of the details of what that means in value, because you're going to be surprised by how that actually comes into play. So basically what that means is that it's someone can own a digital file, and that it's marked with code that differentiates itself from the digital replicas. Okay. Now this is the important part, and this is something that I want you all to kind of take into account, is that when we go through the art examples, you're going to ask the question, well, why can you have this on your screen, but I don't own the NFT for it? And that's where I'm going to kind of give that example in art to kind of give the idea of what that means. So some basics. Art is the easiest way. Baseball cards, I like that because that's actually a good example of what it means and what it is. But Vincent van Gogh, painter that is just very big in our thought process of what happens. In fact, I would venture to say that a lot of you probably have a picture that looks just like this, right? Somewhere in your house. This piece of art has been replicated over and over and over and over and over and over again. But here's how you want to think about it. This piece of art is sold to one individual, or it hasn't been sold, but it has an estimated value. So when it's sold to a person, that person doesn't receive a compensation for the prints that are pulled off of this. Let's use an example of any art heist movie that you've ever seen, okay? So an art heist movie, they always say, well, I want to see the edges, because the edges oftentimes are hidden behind a frame. So that can differentiate from a print or a replica and the actual product. Now, this is where NFTs can token into that tangible property, that real estate, if you will, because we're selling the unique version, whereas everything else would be a counterfeit version. And that's where blockchain comes into play to verify that ownership. So this piece of art, right? When Van Gogh paints this initially, it's worthless. It's worth just what he had involved in it. But over time, it becomes worth money, okay? To the tune today that it is worth in the reference of about, give or take, $1 billion. That's the estimated value of this property right now, okay? So $1 billion that it's worth today, okay? So if it's worth $1 billion today, when Vincent van Gogh drew it or painted it, it was worthless to anybody but him, or to the person that maybe he painted it for. But today it's worth $1 billion. But like I said, you buy it for $1 billion, you're receiving no compensation for anybody that's printing it off, okay? They're just printing it off and selling the product. That's kind of how you have to think of an NFT, because what you're going to come into is this category, right? So that's worth $1 billion today. Well, what about digital art, right? So this is where it comes interesting. So if I told you that digital art, something that could possibly sell for $600,000, okay? $600,000, that's pretty substantial. And this is a new form of art. So digital form of art. So this is the digital form of art, all right? Yeah, that's right. It's a Pop-Tart kitten with rainbow sparkles, okay? That is worth $600,000 in the digital art space. Now, if you'll notice, right now, I actually have that in my file, okay? So that is worth a total of $600,000. The next one is worth $69 million, all right? So I'm gonna show you this because you gotta see what it is to understand why this is a little crazy, okay? So I'm gonna show it to you real quick and just kind of give you an idea of what $69 million looks like. And this particular property right here, this piece of art, just recently sold for $69 million at a Christie's auction. Now, until October, the most that this particular artist, his name is Beeble, the most that this artist had sold for was $100. So he went from $100 to $69 million, okay? So $69 million that this particular piece of art sells for. Now, why am I going over an art example? I'm gonna go over kind of the idea of what this means, okay? So if this is going to be selling for $69 million, how is real estate involved in this? And how does real estate kind of show what's changing in the marketplace? Well, you have a property digitally that sold for $69 million. But if you notice, that piece of art is on that website. And I actually, in my presentation, had copied it and dropped it into this actual presentation. Didn't work nice, and there we ran into an issue. But the point is that what differentiates this from that, and that is what is called blockchain. So in blockchain, what has to happen is there has to be a verification of that particular property. Now, here is something that you want to make sure that you realize. To actually verify that particular property, okay? So that $69 million property, to verify its tangible asset to be able to be sold, that property, to verify its certifications and all that stuff, required blockchain. The power required, and power, when I mean power, I mean physical electricity, to verify that particular piece of property is estimated to be about 15 kilowatt hours. Now, 15 kilowatt hours is pretty substantial in the grand scheme of things. That is a lot of power to actually accomplish that task. So you have to think about what is going to be the ramifications on the digital aspect, but also on the power grid to verify these types of things. A lot of people don't realize that, but when you're dealing with digital currency and blockchain, you are actually using up a lot of power and a lot of energy, a lot of carbon footprint, if you will, to establish these things. But the benefit is the transference of that property, the verification of it was very fast, very rapid. And that is where the benefit comes into real estate and the conversation about why this may become a token of real estate. So why do realtors need to actually know what's going on? Or why do they need to have an idea? Because you have people like Elon Musk, you have people like Gary Vaynerchuk, they're all talking about this right now. And because they're talking about it, people are exploring and putting out options on how they can actually bring this into real estate. So the concept is basically stretching out and bringing out the title companies in the equation, and now having a digital file, a certifiable file that they can drop into the equation to actually manage the sale of this real estate. So us as real estate agents, do we have any place in this environment? The answer is probably, because Christie's, as I mentioned, was the auction house for that property that sold for $69 million. Christie's received a commission off that, just like we would receive off of selling property. So real estate agents are still involved. It's the title companies that are going to have a little bit of a questionable involvement in this, because the digital certification is stamped by that thing that has to be verified through blockchain. So rather than having to do a title search, now you're wrapping yourself into possibly doing it through a digital certification through blockchain. Now, a lot of these terms, guys, write these down, because these are things you kind of need to explore. And I would love to basically bring all that detail out, but I'm trying to keep this to about 15 minutes, so I can't get all over all of it. What I'm going to say is this, is you need to explore it, because it's going to be something that's going to be relevant. I'm just simply saying, as real estate agents, we need to kind of manage it. We need to kind of keep an eye out on it, because, guys, this is already being talked about at the state level of conversation when it comes to title companies and so on and so forth. So if we don't have an idea about it, we will look really silly when a client is bringing it up to us. So how does it have to get into play? Well, somebody has to go through the process of actually starting to move this stuff. There is actually conversation of a lot of tangible products actually selling this month through NFTs. So that will be kind of the entry point for what will maybe happen in real estate. Now, what's going to be interesting is how the politicians take into account these things, because the verification through public records has been the identifier of what most mortgage companies want to have as far as identification of property. But as you saw this weekend with Elon coming out that he's going to take Dogecoin for payment of Teslas, well, now that's going to open the dialogue of, well, this could now be another bank allowing for NFT transfer of ownership, and they're willing to lend on that NFT of ownership. So lots of crazy stuff going on in the market. And why should you know? Well, these are things that you have to kind of work through and have a conversation about today, because guess what? It's going to be something that is going to be relevant come very soon. So please, guys, don't just leave it on the bandwagon. I know I threw a lot at you and you're asking yourself, what does this mean? Simple Google search. What is a NFT? Then second Google search. How does NFT affect real estate? There's actually some really good articles out right now that are having the conversation of what does that translate into as we move forward. Guys, this is something that is on the horizon. And I want everybody that's listening right now to be understanding that this is on the horizon, because if you don't watch it, if you don't keep up with it, we're going to be left behind. And I don't want anybody that's at least taking the moment to listen to this to be left behind. You want to stay strong in your real estate knowledge. And now this is one of those things. On Inman, when you see things pop on Inman a couple times, you need to start paying attention to it. This has been on Inman pretty prevalent as of the last couple weeks, because it is a topic of conversation in a lot of circles that are at a very high level. Okay, so make sure you're paying attention to it.